KSR's Jack Pilgrim here for a different edition of the Rapid Reaction. We are actually live from the Hartford Airport. Zack Geoghegan and I, as you can see down there, we are leaving the Fall Classic, where we just saw, unfortunately, a little bit of bad news for the Kentucky basketball program as five-star guard Ian Jackson, who was Kentucky's #1 target in the class of 2024, announces his commitment to North Carolina. Zach, you and I were both there in person for this commitment. Just initial thoughts on how all of that unfolded. A very hectic 24 hours.
Yeah, it seemed to come down to probably the last few hours with the actual decision there. Kentucky was kind of in a great position for probably the last, 2 years or so to get Ian's commitment. And then Hubert Davis kind of swooped in there at the last second. Ian did a really, really good job of not telling anybody. Even last night when everyone, they did the post-game press conference with after his Cardinal Hayes game, he even said that only his parents knew. And it kind of felt like that even leading up until maybe the morning of, probably around like 10 or 11 o'clock this morning is when some of the expert picks started to roll in, and North Carolina kind of became the consensus leader. So he did a great job of keeping it tight, but I don't think there's any way other to describe this than a miss for Kentucky, Jack.
Yeah, and it's a shame because this was Kentucky's #1 target. There was a reason why they prioritized him so early. The #1 offer for that 2024 class, right on that June 15th when the contact period opened up. That was Kentucky's first visit, first offer, and then brought him in on a visit. They wanted him bad, a two-way threat, dynamic defensive player who just attacks constantly, nonstop motor. One of those guys that they make an impact in college. That those guys find ways to make an impact in college, and that's why Kentucky saw him as an instant impact type of guy, and that's why they wanted him so bad. They saw him as a great complementary piece to some of the other guys that they wanted to bring in, and now the kind of headliner of your class is headed elsewhere, and it's a big kind of shock to the system after dominating in 2023 the way they have, where a very weak 2024 class, Zach, that we've talked about extensively. You kind of needed to get a guy like this, and now that he's gone, it kind of leaves you scrambling, looking at the other options, saying, what is your headliner at that point? If you miss out on #1 this early, it's kind of just where do you even go from here, Zach?
Yeah, this definitely felt like you were gonna. Kentucky kind of had this plan of you get Ian and then you build the class around him. Even if the top guys in that class aren't exactly what they might be in other classes, Ian was a guy that he has aspirations to be the #1 pick. He's definitely on the right track to do that, and not getting him, it kind of just leaves a giant gap now. It kind of puts Kentucky behind the 8 ball. It feels like you're going to have to start really focusing in on guys like Trey Johnson. Really test the waters with Flory Badunga. Jack, as you mentioned yesterday on Sources Say, you got Darren Peterson, the 25 class, who might be a reclass guy. So it just really puts Kentucky in a difficult situation, I think, moving forward. And they might have to completely shift gears entirely and, maybe just rethink everything about this 24 class and how they want to build everything. Do they maybe take a look at Travis Perry again, maybe a little bit closer look there now that Ian's gone? And obviously those aren't really comparable players, but this is definitely a big loss for Kentucky just all around.
Yeah, and there's so many different recruitments that you could kind of say, well, Kentucky didn't really go all in, or like even like an Ace Bailey who just committed to Rutgers, and there's other stuff going on behind the scenes where you can kind of just chalk that up as all right, you know what, we just weren't going to win that one. There were outside factors that led to Kentucky not winning, certain recruitments, or even like guys like Trent Flowers with the fake offers who say they, claim they have an offer from Kentucky and then end up not having one at all. So you get guys like that it makes sense when they aren't including Kentucky on the final list, or when they don't commit. But Ian was not an example of that. This is a guy that Kentucky's been going after for 2 years, that they thought that they had locked up for, as late as 2 weeks ago. They thought that this was a done deal, that they were just waiting for him to make it official. And then you have Hubert Davis come in and put forth a full court press on him. An unbelievable visit. I just talked to Ian after his commitment. I had a one-on-one session. He said the visit was amazing. Said that they really pitched the family atmosphere. He really felt at home, and just really kind of was sold on Hubert Davis's vision for him, that he could step in and be the #1 pick coming out of UNC. And I know that's not a very common thing. One and dones don't come out of UNC, and especially at the guard position. That's a program that usually kind of takes 2, 3, 4 years to develop at the guard spot. So for Ian to say that he was going to go in there and be the number one pick, it's a little uncharacteristic and not really historically factual, considering their recent history. I mean, all things considered, that's his vision and that's his dream. And if he thinks he's going to be able to step in there and do that at UNC, then that's clearly the vision that he was sold on.
Yeah, and North Carolina doesn't have the track record, like I said, of producing those one and done guys, but Ian's probably in a position where he can probably make that happen regardless. So if UNC is the spot that he feels himself. I know he's really good friends with Elliot Cadeau, who's also in that class with the 24 kids. So there's a connection there. But I want to know what happened during that visit, because he must have obviously they blew him away, but it feels like that was when the tides turned, because that shortly after those visits is when he started building a commitment date and things like that. And then you have his weird press conference last night where looking back now, he essentially did tip his hand, and he told everyone that North Carolina was where he was going to go in that press conference. And it was just it was odd how all that kind of unfolded there. But honestly, I give credit to him for keeping it close and tight to the vest, because that's just tough to do at this day and age. And just skill wise, he's still a guy that, it's like I said, he's going to go he can go lottery, top 5, top 3, whatever he wants in that class, in that 24 draft. So ultimately, for him, it's probably he's probably going to find success either way. But Kentucky's the one that's really going to bear the brunt end of it.
And I went back and I looked at some of the quotes that I had with him, Zach, even as late as Pangos, which was back in June. We talked to him, and he gave all of the dream school quotes and said that Kentucky was where he always wanted to be, that John Calipari was the coach that was going to get him to the pros, and that was his vision and what he always wanted to be a part of. So it is a little concerning that that was the school that he thought was going to be the one and done place for him, where he was going to be able to kind of fit right in and be that guy, and then have somebody else come in and swoop in. And even in the quotes with me at Pangos, he said that UNC hadn't talked to him quite a lot, and that they were just kind of getting things started. And that was a school that he would like to hear from. He said that I grew up and I always liked the light blue, baby, powder blue, and I like the history behind it, and I like the flair. But he was like, but they're not really recruiting me. I don't really understand why. So Kentucky had a massive head start in this one. And he even went out of his way to say, like, hey, I would like to be recruited by UNC. They had to be prodded to recruit this kid. And then they still come in at the last second and win. It's a flip, because we usually see Kentucky win those recruitments. We see Cal come in at the last second and win those types of recruitments. So it's very bizarre that the roles were flipped, and a brand new coach and Hubert Davis, second year guy, will be third by the time he gets here, or I guess fourth, not this season, but not next, but the one after that. That's when he would be coming in. So it's a culture shock. It's just not something that we're used to seeing under John Calipari. So I guess we will have to see how that unfolds. I guess from here, the other options are Tahad Pettiford. We just talked to him a couple days ago. He said that he is planning a visit to Kentucky, that he does hold an offer from Kentucky. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on, that they kind of were wait and see mode with him to see how that would unfold, but definitely keep a close eye on him. Boogie Fland is at the top of their priority list at the guard spot. So definitely keep an eye on him. And then Trey Johnson is the pro. He is the other complementary piece alongside Ian Jackson that people look at as, a clear consensus top 3 prospect in this class. So you got to get Trey Johnson. I don't even know how realistic that is, because I thought they were in much better spot with Ian than they were with Trey, because Trey is very strongly considering the pro route, and there are other programs close to home that he's really intrigued with. It was Texas before the whole Chris Beard thing unfolded. That's kind of a wait and see game with that one. But Baylor is making a push, and some other schools, and definitely the pro route for Trey as well. So definitely not a guy that you could just pencil in as a guarantee either. So yeah, I agree. You brought up that Darren Peterson at 25. I think that's going to be the guy that Kentucky has to go after, has to put at the top of their priority list for reclass, because he is a ready-made guy. He's going to be able to step in and be that immediate impact. For my money, I think he would reclass and actually be ranked a little bit higher than Ian as is. I think he would be maybe even the number 1 player in the class if he does reclass. So that's definitely the one that Kentucky needs to start prodding hard and make sure that he gets in that 24. Because if not, the star talent just won't be there. And you could say, oh, why don't we just go hit the transfer portal? Why don't we do this and that? Transfer portal is not going to get you, the NBA superstars that you're looking for. We're seeing that issue with this team right now. So if, you can say that, yeah, we'll just go get the best guard out of the transfer portal, but those aren't NBA players. There's a reason that they're not in the NBA. They are still in college, third fourth year in college for a reason. So you got to get NBA talent, and Ian was one of those guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think we should talk about. There's a lot of talk on the internet of how Kentucky fans are maybe I don't know, the hostility that was been spread on social media is one of the reasons why Ian didn't commit to Kentucky. I think we should go ahead and just deny all of that. I don't think that has anything to do with how a guy like Ian is going to make his decision, considering he's only going to be there for the 1 year. Yeah, does Kentucky's down year maybe play a part into it? And the possibility that there's talk of Cal maybe doing a swan song with next year's class. I'm sure that would play more into it than just what fans are writing on message boards and social media, because North Carolina, for everyone that doesn't know, is not on a great track right now either. They're kind of in the same boat as Kentucky. And I guess what, North Carolina fans are just as loud and annoying on the internet as Kentucky fans are. So I don't think that that had anything to do with it. And if it did, that's probably a bigger indictment on Ian than it is as anything else. So, but I don't think that was the case at all. There was no reason for it to be. Like you say, he's only going to be there for a year, no matter where he goes. The fan base is not going to be a reason that a kid like him takes North Carolina over Kentucky, because you're going to get the exact same thing at either place.
And I asked even like Aaron Bradshaw and Wagner and some of the other signees about just the restlessness that we're seeing with Kentucky fans this year, and just kind of, when the team is down, how things have gotten so negative and things like that. And, if they are concerned about, kind of long-term picture of what the program is, and if that, it has any impact on it all. And you could tell they're just so disconnected from that type of stuff. They're like, well, yeah, it's, they're struggling a little bit, but who cares? Like there's almost that like, I'm not going to be here till next year, and I'm going to be here to fix it. So why the hell do I care? Like, that's not even that big of a deal.
It's going to be a completely different team next year too.
So for Ian Jackson, who is 2 years away from that, like to say that, some negative fans were the reason why he chose UNC over Kentucky is just not, that's just not realistic, because unfortunately, you just have to tip your cap to UNC. They came in late. They sold him on a dream and sold him on a pitch that absolutely resonated with him. And Hubert Davis he fell in love with Hubert Davis and just kind of the personality that he brought. And as we have the high school basketball team right here in front of us. So apologies for the background noise. They're teenage boys. You just can't help yourself. But anyway, you're not going to blame the fans for losing Ian Jackson. That's not how it unfolded. It is definitely just a win on UNC's part and a loss on Kentucky's part. I think it's just a flat out there. You can't spin it any different direction. There's no, this is somebody that Kentucky put their blood, sweat, and tears into, and he just said no. And he did tell me that UK was second on his list, and it was really difficult telling John Calipari, a guy that he trusted and had so much respect for over the years. It was difficult to tell him no, but he just said it felt like a decision he had to make, and that he just felt like home was at Chapel Hill. So unfortunately, we just have to kind of take this loss on the chin and start looking at the other options, and we will see what happens. So it's clearly getting a little bit too rowdy for me to like in here, Zach. So any last second thoughts before we have to board our flight?
No, I don't. Well, I think it's it's kind of just a what happens next for Kentucky. It's really going to be the biggest question. Who's the next guy that they make as their Ian Jackson? Is that going to be Trey Johnson? They probably have a lot of ground to make up there. So there's definitely some question marks now for that 24 class. I'm sure there'll probably be a couple other players over the next year and a half or so that will emerge as guys that are right up there along with guys like Ian and Trey. But until that happens, Kentucky's going to be kind of left searching for that until that time comes, and it's going to put them, like I said, behind the eight ball in this class. And just with how things are, you've got obviously a great 23 class, so it's not like things are on a downward trajectory, I wouldn't say, but it's definitely a little bit of a cause for concern.
Out of here, way too much going on, so let's get out of here and we'll get you on the next one. Go Cats.